Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Breakfast All Day. I'm Matt, and Alonso's here, and Christy's here.
Hi.
We have all kinds of news. It's crazy.
There's actually a lot of news this week.
Yes. There is. In the, among other things, the never-ending rescheduling of Tenet.
That's my lead. Tenet is my lead, and we will get to that.
Well, let's not bury it. We have a bunch of news. How's everybody doing, though? But first, how's everyone doing?
I got my nails done. This is a blue shade called You Don't Know Me, or Udon Know Me, like Udon, U-D-O-N, Udon Know Me.
Like Know Me, like
in
the
Showgirls.
Movie? Showgirls.
That's why your nails are hoary looking.
Right. It's for face. So
we're supposed to watch that, right?
We should. That should be a thing we do. We should watch Showgirls. It was very sanitary. You had to make an appointment. They took your temperature. They had like a little plexiglass screen between you and the woman doing your nails. Everyone wears masks. They have people spaced out. I felt safe. It was fine.
Did you wear a mask?
I did. Yeah.
Good.
I have a mask with little anchors on it because it's my sorority symbol because I'm a dork.
Funny. Mine has one anchor on it because it's part of the JCRT logo. So there's a little anchor stitched in.
Very nice. Anyway,
now I have a bunch of Hawaiian print ones.
Of course you do. How are you guys doing?
Good. I mean, I have to admit, I've been a little bummed occasionally this week because it's really hitting me that this is not ending anytime soon. Like the numbers keep spiking and people keep acting like, oh, it's all over. And then when they do, you have a surprise birthday party and all 20 people come down with COVID. And so I'm already I'm trying to get into the headspace that Christmas is fucked this year. That it's going to be isolated, that it's going to be Zoom, it's going to be me and Dave, and we're going to like do it up here, but we're not going to see anybody. We're not going to get to hang out with anybody. And so that I'm grappling with that. I know it's a dumb thing that I'm thinking about it, but it's what I think about. And so, but just trying to sort of find the things that make me happy in the meantime, just like everybody else.
Chris and I talk about the numbers are spiking and it's really scary and what can we do, and we are pretty isolated and we wear masks and we wash our hands. And if Nick is going to not hockey games per se, but like practices, and they're really careful about having a small number of kids and they don't share a locker room. They just show up dressed already. So I'm feeling a little bit better about some vague strayings into normalcy while also being careful. But I hear you. Like every day we're seeing on the news, like record high in California, record high nationwide. And
like, are you getting in the headspace of there being more school at home for the rest of this year?
It's funny. There's a town hall for our school district on next week about how to handle it. Like I would send Nick back though. I would send Nick back if, they have things in place as far as like masks and smaller classes and doing more stuff outside. And I feel like there's a big op-ed in the Washington Post recently from this guy at the Harvard Public Health School who was like an expert on sick buildings and how to rehabilitate them and get people back into them again. And he said that kids, I'm going to oversimplify this vastly, of course, but like kids are in better shape as far as the likelihood that they might transmit this to each other. It's teachers, it's faculty, it's adults coming onto campus. And as long as you can like have some distancing and you have some protocols, like it could be okay to send kids back to school in the fall. He needs it. He really, really needs it. I mean, I think all these kids are suffering from some kind of FOMO or depression or something. They need socialization. They need each other. So I'm hopeful that will happen.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Gabe, my son's 16. He just finished his sophomore year. He wants to go back to school when school starts again. Like he wants to go back in.
Sure.
And we've noticed in the last week or so since school ended for him, he's been in a serious mood because he's not interacting with other kids right? It was okay for a couple of days because The Last of Us 2 came out, which is this new game, the big sequel. And he burned through that in about 2 or 3 days. And so we didn't really notice him being in a shittier mood, but now he's definitely in a shittier mood.
Animal Crossing, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, although we don't have a Switch, so I mean, not that I would mind getting one. Yeah, it's been weird. As I mentioned before, we're moving in a couple of months. Like we'll be moving the first or month and a half. We'll be moving in the first week or second week of August. So that's given me something to focus on, and it's exciting. And we got to pack up and all that kind of stuff going on. And I'm really focused on my the pool in the backyard and my outdoor patio that I'm now calling the Lanai.
It's Shangri-La in the Lanai.
Right, exactly. There's hibiscus in the backyard, so I knew it was the perfect house for us to get.
Valley High.
Right? But as Alonso, as you talk about Christmas, like I had been thinking for the last 4 or 5 months that I'm going to plan a big birthday party in December for my 50th birthday. And maybe not, probably not, I mean, okay, fine. I'll live. But this is the time, right? Or will I? But this is the time, look, we do this job because we love movies, right? Like we do this because we love seeing movies. And I, for one, and I know that you guys do too, like there's something about a big blockbuster that's really well made. Like the big event movies are super fun. And this is the time of year that we should be watching those, right? I mean, even when they're crappy, like it's an event, right? We spend a lot of time talking about it. We get and go see it. We come back, we relate it, and none of that's happening, right? I mean, we keep joking about Tenet being pushed back and Wonder Woman, but all of these things that I think what's really hitting, especially this month, is that shared cultural experience of everybody in the country focusing on a big release and a bunch of people talking about it and then talking about how it did and making jokes about it and riffing on it for the next 6 months. Like none of that's there, right? And it's not that things, look, like the closest we got is, yes, we all talked about Tiger King for a while. But it's not the same, right? And it's I'm doing well because I do better the more sunshine there is. And so as I'm sitting here, I don't just shoot out here. Like I work out here in the backyard all day. I've got my little table set up and it does well. But yeah, like I'm a little, this week, I'm glad that there's sunshine because I'm a little sad that we're not seeing each other and that we're not going out and seeing our colleagues and just getting, if not normal, going out and doing things and, well.
Yeah, I hear you. Writing about My Spy this week for Ebert reminded me that was the last screening that all of us went to. That the last press screening was that Wednesday night before that Friday that everything shut down, and so it was it's a bit of a time capsule.
Was it that one? I thought that was the second to last one because I thought the last thing that I had seen, and that for me that was the penultimate screening because the last one I saw was what is it? The one
Never,
about
Rarely, Sometimes, Always?
No. The one where they're hunting each other. The Hunt. Yeah.
Well, that's the last thing I saw too, but I paid for that on a Thursday night. The last press screening where we all were together.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I was already
Wednesday.
sheltering in place by that point because Dave had gotten sick the week before with what might have been that because it was a really awful respiratory thing, but we don't know. The last March 5th was my last time into a theater, and that was for First Cow, and then I missed that whole next week, so I didn't go to My Spy or The Hunt.
It's weird.
Speaking of shared cultural experiences, though, have you guys watched The Floor is Lava yet?
No, but I hear it's great. Is it fun?
So it's a game show called The Floor is Lava.
Right.
And it's hilarious. So it's on Netflix. I'm sure people have heard about it. I almost want to say it's like American Ninja Warrior, but it's closer to that show Wipeout where it's like no one has any skills. Like they're just people.
I watched the first Don't, and I'm probably not going to watch any more Don't, but it also has that sort of like, it's on ABC. It's Ryan Reynolds apparently made it up. It's kind of like Double Dare for adults.
Okay. It's not the movie that Edgar Rice did
sadly. I wish. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Aren't they making that?
Are they?
Or Eli Roth.
They thought about it, but somebody said
Eli Roth was going to make Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yes. These are all of the fake trailers in Grindhouse. Okay.
Right.
Well, let's keep checking in with each other. You guys out there listening and watching, let us know how you're doing as we are entering this is the 4th month. We're in the middle of the 4th month of this at this point, in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
So let us know. Matt, you have marquees.
I do, yes. So let me share my screen. We have some this week. So let me find them. Give me just a moment. All right. So this is the one that we opened the clip with. This is the Plains Theater in. You know what? I forgot to write down where it was. Anyway, it's the Plains Theater, and it just says soon.
Who sent this to us? Is this Facebook or Instagram?
No, I went and found this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are we going? Planet 10. When are we leaving? Soon.
Right. It is very ominous, right?
And the sky has like it's about to storm any minute now kind of look about it. Yeah.
Foreboding.
Kind of fits in with I don't know if you guys have watched the trailer for Greenland.
Not yet, no.
Oh my God. So there's this new Greenland trailer for a new disaster movie called Greenland, which is Gerard Butler has to get his family to a bunker in Greenland before a comet hits the Earth. And all I can think of is Wallace Shawn going, Greenland?
I think it's the player with Greenland's very icy and Iceland's very green.
Right, exactly.
Right. Okay. So this next picture comes from Chris McGovern. He says it's from the Harkins Theater. I assume that's a Chris. Chris Kim Shattuck Forever McGovern. Kim Shattuck being the guitarist for the Muffs.
Bass player.
Bass player, sorry. Bass guitar.
And briefly for the Pixies, too.
Oh, yeah? Okay. I thought that was Kim Deal.
Well, it was, and then they brought in Kim Shattuck. And then they fired her because she stage dove. She was cool as shit. We saw them twice with Kim Shattuck as her bass player, and she's like 5'11", and she's jumping up and down. She's so much fun, and she stage dove, and I guess Frank Black said to her, the Pixies don't stage dive. And they fired her.
Whatever, Frank Black. Anyway, Chris McGovern sends this in. It's from the Harkins Theater. Harkins is a chain that's in the Southwest, among other places, and that's from Sedona, Arizona.
Oh.
It says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and that's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And the 2081 here, I assume, is the address and not a year.
Yeah.
Right?
Soon.
All right. Our next picture is another picture from Dimitri Chrysanthopoulos, who sent us a picture last week. This one's from Westfield, New Jersey. And Dimitri wanted us to mention that his niece, Theodora, was with him taking pictures of these. So,
Hi, Theodora.
Hi, Theodora. So thank you, Dimitri, for sending in another picture. That's the Rialto Theater, Westfield, New Jersey. It says, stay home, stay safe. Help local businesses, it says on the front, at westfieldunitedfund.org. Cool. All right, so the next picture, a couple pictures from Jeff Swanson. He writes in and says, here's a marquee from the Starlight Theater in Litchfield, Minnesota, a suburb of Minneapolis. This is a 2-screen drive-in theater. It's a little hard to see, but they've got a full socially distanced crowd ready to see some classic double features. There's a picture of, the second picture is it lit up at night, and they're doing a double feature, I guess on each screen. One is Grease and then Footloose, and then the other one is Jurassic Park and then Jaws.
Those are good drive-in movies,
right? Those are.
It looks very retro. The whole like the font of the starlight looks very kitschy 60s.
Yeah.
Right, and also kind of the retro idea of sometimes you have different color letters in the marquee.
You ran out of A's.
Right? You ran out of A's. Yeah. Okay. Next up, this is from Frank Sogino. He sent some pictures in of this same marquee a few weeks back. You might remember the one that said "We Are Groot." So this is the Elk Grove Theater that they've updated their marquee. They say that they are coming back June 26th today. Great Scott, we're back. Reopening June 26th. And then the other side of it says, "You had me at movies reopening June 26th."
Let me go close the door. You guys keep talking, but the gardeners are here, so keep talking.
It's not nice just slamming the door in the gardener's faces. That's not cool. The gardeners are nice people.
Exactly.
All right, so next up, this is a picture that Mark Breich sent us in. This is the Strand Theater in Delaware, Ohio, and he linked to an article that talked about how the pandemic has interrupted what essentially was a continuous run of operation, as he writes, that started in 1916 at the Strand Theater in Delaware. Now, I went through the article, and the article talks about it's this independently owned theater. They show a lot of different stuff there, but they do, before the pandemic struck, they would have kids days, like kids screenings, that would be lower prices or donations to kind of local charities. And then they were also doing something that was I have to look up and see how they worded it, so I make sure that I get it correctly, but it was a different kind of screening that they talked about. It's primarily, or among other things, like a sensory friendly screening series.
Right. Kids with sensory issues and maybe it's a little lower volume. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody gets to sit and wait for me to look for stuff. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, so it was the Strand Sensory Series, providing closed captioning, increased lighting, and assisted listening devices for patrons on the autism spectrum or for those living with other special needs, which has now come to a halt because they're closed. So this is one of the great things that indie theaters can do. They're a little bit more nimble in being able to serve a community than, say, a big chain, because a big chain's got to go through mountains of lawyers to get anything done.
Right.
So let's hope that the Strand comes back strong. Okay, so next up, this is a whole series, and we're only going to pull a couple of these. Duncan Gray was tweeting about this. Christy pointed this out this week. A guy named Greg Lemley, who runs the Royal Theater, the Lemley Royal, on
the Lemley Theater chain,
the Lemley Theater, right in West LA, has been programming. He's been writing a bunch of stuff on or posting fun movie marquees on the Lemley Royal. And what we see right here is one that says, "Now playing Life Stinks, coming soon, Hope Floats." And there's two different signs, and he's got, for the last 10, 12 weeks, he's been doing this every week. I strongly recommend going to his Twitter or his Instagram, which has all of these pictures with the hashtag Corona Closure. I'll put the link in the description. It's his handle is Greg Lemley, Laemmle. And there's a bunch of them, and he, sometimes they're social commentary, sometimes it reflects his mood. They're very fun. So this is the one right now, now playing Life Stink. It's not playing right now, but this is the first one in this series. It says, "Now playing Life Stinks, coming soon, Hope Floats." Next one, "Now playing Hope Springs, coming soon, Reality Bites." It's kind of a cynical view of the future. This is in reaction to a lot of the protests. "Now playing Do the Right Thing, coming soon, and Justice for All." But he's also funny sometimes. Now playing Groundhog Day, coming soon, Groundhog Day. So those are a bunch of, those are just a few of the ones that he's put up. So definitely check those out. And thanks for everyone who sent those in. Now I have one more thing I'm going to share. A guy named Bobby Lane sent us a video. So I'm going to see if I can make this work. Sharing the video with everybody.
Ooh, a video in a video.
This is very exciting. Is that even allowed?
We will see.
The Lemley chain, by the way, they're a great art house chain here in LA. They own the New Art and the Royal and several.
The Monica and ones in like Pasadena and some other places.
Oh, it's a bummer. But some of the first art house theater movies I ever saw were at the Lemley New Art. So I have fond memories of.
And they are related to the Lemleys who founded Universal Pictures back in the day.
Now I can play this without sound. It does have captions.
What is it?
It's this. So Bobby Lane sent in a video on Facebook, says, "Hello, I hope you're all doing well. This is the social media reopening message from a family-owned theater my wife and I love to go to in Springfield, Vermont. They play mainly mainstream films, indies once in a blue moon. It was also the theater that won the Simpsons movie Springfield premiere contest back in the day. But
if there's no sound, then our podcast people can't hear it.
Well, then forget it.
Oh, well.
Well, if you want to, can you link to it in the show notes?
Yes, I will link to it in the show notes.
Okay.
Thank you for everybody for sending all that in.
Yay.
Yeah,
thanks,
thank you for all of that. We love all of those. So keep them coming. Interesting how the marquees have been evolving, right? How at first it was messages of hope and encouragement and COVID stuff, and then it became Black Lives Matter stuff and everything in between, community help stuff. And so it's a good way for these local theaters especially to keep in contact with their community members.
Before the internet, we had bulletin boards,
Okay, should we do news?
Let's.
Sure.
Are we ready for news? As we mentioned at the top, Tenet has moved again. It is like a top that keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. And will it ever? It's wobbling.
That's
knitting.
Knitting.
Knitting. I don't want to be the Eeyore here, but it all sounded very optimistic that they thought, oh yes, mid-July, we're going to have this thing licked and we're good to go. And it's no, are we? I don't know. Because every time any state or municipality or county or whatever has tried to reopen and the beaches open and the restaurants open and the whatever, 2 weeks later, the charts go crazy, because God forbid we ever learn anything from the rest of the world that got this right,
Right. Texas tried, it's head spinning what has happened in Texas. Texas opened, and then they tried to close it down a little bit, and now they're really closing everything down again because it all happened so quickly, and Texas is such a giant place. And so, even Governor Abbott there is a Trump guy, but even he is having to say oops. So, they were trying to have bars at 50% capacity and restaurants at 75, and now they're closing bars down and having even more limited restaurant access. Arizona is just fucked. There's a whole Washington Post story about how this got out of control in Arizona.
We've got a whole spike here in California.
Oh,
right?
yeah. We're not pointing fingers. We're
right. What's maddening about this is I was thinking about this the other day, and we've ranted about this. I know I have. It's so obnoxious that there's such pressure to get the economy running again, and at the expense of people may get sick, right? And it just, it all goes back to, to me, if we had a goddamn decent social net, social safety net, then we wouldn't have to, then we wouldn't be worried about people. I can't even speak.
Yeah. Well, also a lot of these governors are taking their cue from the federal government, right? So they're taking cues from people who don't wear masks out to, big public settings or small.
Right, because he doesn't want to smudge his makeup.
If you
that's what it is.
It is totally, yeah. It's bronzer. If you wanted to run a computer simulation of what's wrong with capitalism, We're looking at it, you know.
Anyway, so Tenet was supposed to be July 17th, and then they bumped it to July 31st, and now they're saying August 12th. And it's going to keep kicking it down the road. And I just, with all these movies, why not just say like TBD, right? And like, why go through the whole like face saving thing of, oh, we've got a date and it's going to happen versus the humility of saying we don't know.
Our friend Lindsay Barr, who took over for Christy at AP, just wrote a story about she's in Pennsylvania with her newborn and, you know, living with her parents for a while. And she went to the movies. There was a theater that opened and she went to go see The Goonies with like her brother and sister, and talked about how like there were 2 trailers and one was for, I think Black Widow had like a date that had already come and gone. And then Wonder Woman, it just said summer. And yeah, I think everything now should just be like, at some point, soon.
So that is that big news. Other stuff that is happening. Oh, SpongeBob, however, the SpongeBob with Keanu Reeves is going to be out on VOD on August 7th. So there you go. You can look forward to that. But before that, even Hamilton is next week. We talked about a while ago how you know, they had wanted to open this theatrically next fall, in fall of 2021. And then Lin-Manuel Miranda and all the Disney folks said, let's put it out streaming now. So a week from today, July 3rd, if you have Disney Plus, you can watch Hamilton, all 2 hours and 40 minutes of the filmed version of an early production of Hamilton. This was shot back in 2016, I want to say. And I've never seen Hamilton.
Me neither. I'm psyched.
But it looks great. It looks beautiful. So that is coming soon. Did you really?
Yeah.
Ooh,
was it
fancy.
Good? Did you like it?
It's fine. Too much singing.
Too much rapping. Why do they keep rapping?
All the rapping.
So confusing.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about
There's too much politics.
No metal or rap.
Exactly.
No. So there are some cool.
The founding fathers didn't have rap battles.
They didn't. There are some cool Oh, good. There's some cool drive-in things that are happening. Several different drive-in movie theater series that are going on. So Michael B. Jordan has teamed with Amazon Studios to do a series all summer long. These are free screenings. It's like every weekend from like the July 1st-ish weekend all the way through mid to late August. And it's films by and about African-American, Latino, people of color. And so it's like Love and Basketball, Do the Right Thing, Get Out, Into the Spider-Verse.
Creed.
And there's one night of Black Panther and Creed, both Michael B. Jordan movies. And the concessions are free. There's water, popcorn, and something else that's free. And they are people of color owned businesses who are providing those things. That's one of them. Live Nation is doing a series of drive-in concerts July 10th through 12th in various cities in like Tennessee, Missouri, Indiana. They're concerts of like Brad Paisley and Darius Rucker and Nelly. So you can pull up and they're going to stagger the cars. And so you can have room in between cars to get out and dance or whatever, but it's all outdoors. Tribeca also is doing a drive-in series July 2nd through August 2nd. And they're going to show Black Panther and also Jaws, Wizard of Oz, Back to the Future. It is free to essential workers with a percentage of the profits going to Black Lives Matter.
And that's happening in various cities around the country. I know in LA, they're doing it at the Rose Bowl, but they're doing it in like Arlington, Texas, and a bunch of other places. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on like that.
There's also, have you guys heard about 36 Chambers?
No.
So similarly, not far off. So 36 Chambers, you could go check it out at 36chambers.com, is a screening series that RZA and some of the guys from Wu-Tang are kind of behind, and it's like their movies that, or not that they made, but their movies that and it's a whole live streaming experience. So yes, definitely check that out as well. I think the most recent one that they're planning is a Rudy Ray Moore movie, Petey Wheatstraw, and commentary from Donnell Rawlings.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
And Monday night on Focus Features' Facebook page, they are screening Pariah and doing a Q&A afterwards with Adepero Oduye and Kim Wayans and some other people from the cast. So if you missed that movie, it's one that I really like a lot. And we reviewed it, I think, at the time.
We did. Pariah is so good. Dee Reese.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Disneyland. Let's talk about Disney stuff in general.
Sure.
So Disneyland is now not opening on July 17th.
Right.
Just like Tenet. Disneyland's not opening now. Downtown Disney is still going to open on July 9th. So you can still go to the wine bar. You can still go get your monogrammed ears or whatever you want to get.
Well, I can still go to Trader Sam's.
That too. I'm guessing that this also means Disney World in Orlando is not opening. If Disney
I don't know if they said Disney World isn't. They I think they that's part of the whole Florida thing. They very clearly said Disneyland isn't. I'm not entirely sure about Disney World. And of course, again, by the time this posts, everything could change anyway.
Right.
And have they said anything about Mulan yet? Because that's still supposed to be in July, right?
That's still on the calendar for July 24th. Which again, I don't think that's going to happen. So it's just sitting, and maybe they'll just suck it up and stream it on Disney Plus. Maybe they don't want it to compete with Hamilton, although at that point it'd be 3 weeks after Hamilton. I don't know. Okay, so speaking of Disney, so this happened just like yesterday. They announced that they are going to reimagine the Splash Mountain ride, which is inspired by a Song of the South, where they play Zippity Doo Dah. It is now going to be, it's still going to be a log ride, and it's going to be based on Princess and the Frog, which was Disney's first big animated film with a black lead character, or black Disney princess.
Good.
But somebody had an interesting thing where they were like, they said, I feel about Disney movies the opposite that I feel about Confederate statues. He goes, not that this needs to be not having to do with the ride. He goes, but I don't want them to be able to pretend like Song of the South never happened. People need to be able to look at it and go, that was a thing. That was a thing that happened, and it's we know now why it's terrible in a million ways. I don't know. I feel a little weird, like all these episodes of things getting pulled, like 30 Rock and South Park. It's kind of like,
get to that.
Sorry. It kind of ties together. It's sort of like, look, these all exist on DVD, and there's other ways to see them. And I kind of feel like we have to sort of sit in our own shit sometimes. And I think that if you're Tina Fey, you don't get to pretend like you didn't do those episodes. I think now you make those episodes available with an intro from her and whoever else saying, okay, well, this was a thing that we thought was funny, and now we realize it wasn't funny.
Here's some context for you.
Exactly.
We talked a little bit about last week, I had seen some knucklehead write this whole thing about how Disney shouldn't change, how Disneyland shouldn't change. We didn't talk about it on video. I think we texted about it a little bit. How Disneyland shouldn't change
Splash Mountain
so that they can't get away from it. And it was, and my feeling on that is that's a really stupid take to take.
I don't think it applies to the ride, but I think in terms of film,
but this was a person who was basically like, oh no, they should keep it in place because there's nothing overtly bad in the ride, and then Disney can't escape it. It's like, okay, sure, it doesn't affect you, clown rider, but maybe we need, it doesn't need to be in the park, right? It's and similarly,
it is cultural insensitivity writ large,
right? And I think with, I was always impressed, and this was, probably 20 years ago when the first DVD set of the Looney Tunes came out, those Looney Tunes Golden Collections, right? Yeah. And I remember they weren't putting them out in any particular order. They were all hand-picked. And as a big, long-time Looney Tunes fan, I have all of those sets. But I started wondering with a couple of my friends, what's going to happen when they get to some of these more problematic cartoons? And they had Whoopi Goldberg cut something that basically was like, look, there's a lot of stuff in here that's garbage, and it was wrong then. It's wrong, it's wrong now, and it was wrong then. But we're not going to pretend that they didn't happen. So we're putting them in context. And I think that that's tougher to do it's not so much it's tougher. It's the easiest, quickest, cheapest thing to do is pull stuff from the streaming services, right?
And reruns with these 30 Rock episodes, they're out of the rotation,
and that's different. That's a thing that people sort of stumble upon. But like, if you're somebody in the future who is researching this and needs to see it from start to finish, or just somebody who, frankly, if you're somebody who's researching like problematic portrayals of like race-based comedy in television, like it should be there. But I think it should be there with context. It should be there with whatever warnings you want to slap on it. But I just don't like the idea of pretending this stuff didn't happen, because that's a weird, that gets us to a weird place historically.
Yeah. So 3 of the episodes were Jane Krakowski in blackface, and one was John Hamm. Right. So those will be pulled. Speaking of racists, Mel Gibson is not going to do his voice in Chicken Run 2.
Well, gee. And
I love Chicken Run.
Love Chicken Run too. How are we pretending that nobody knew all of this stuff about Mel Gibson for ages? It's on tape.
Right. I mean, people weren't getting called out about it to the extent that they are now. So now everyone's in like cover your ass mode, and
I guess
let's get rid of Mel Gibson in this context. Yes.
What I keep thinking about is there are certain actors who were like, box office draws that we haven't seen work in a decade or a couple of decades, right? At least like Nicholson, right? Like we haven't seen anything out of Nicholson in a long time.
He's been at Laker games.
Well, right. But I can only imagine like somebody cast Nicholson in something, and like, can you imagine somebody like, I mean, look, I don't know anything. Maybe he's a perfectly fine guy, right? But you have to imagine like there's some of these old school actor types that there's got to be like, the reason there's no stories about them right now is because they're not doing anything, and there's no juice in it in the news.
Who knows?
I don't know. As somebody said, Mel Gibson was nominated for a Best Director Oscar in 2017. So let's not pretend that rich white guys with friends in Hollywood get canceled, because they don't.
No, right. I mean, it's like, it's Polanski, right? Like, oh, he did an underage girl? Like, well, shit. Who cares? I mean,
Well, we've had this discussion many times, like, can you separate the artist from the art? And it seems like increasingly the corporations that put out the art don't want to have to make people make that choice, right?
Yeah. Woody Allen has a new movie coming out, by the way. It's opening the San Sebastian Film Festival. We'll never see it.
Super.
Because Amazon, what was it? I'm sorry, I want to jump back real quick. Walt Disney World is opening July 11th, according to the website. And Animal Kingdom and Epcot on Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom on the 11th, Epcot and Disney Hollywood on the 15th. But
well, we'll see if that happens. That's in like 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks.
Do you think if people are fans of Disney World, they tune into the show Animal Kingdom and are like, what the hell is this?
Not what I signed up for.
Sorry, go ahead.
The Dixie Chicks are changing their name.
Yes.
They're no longer the Dixie Chicks. They're just the Chicks.
All right.
It's like Lady Antebellum, no longer being Lady Antebellum. They're now Lady A.
Yes, but in this case, there isn't like a pre-existing singer who also goes by the Chicks, right? Because there is a Lady A that's been around for a while.
I don't know, but what does Dixie Beer do now, right? What do Dixie Cups do?
Dixie Cups are actually, so Dixie Cups announced that they're just going to do. Dixie Cups are going to just change their name to Dix.
D cups.
Drink a bag of cups. Anyway,
I don't know if Dixie Beer. Who knows? I don't know anything about who runs that company. I can't.
Anyway, just putting that out there. So other things.
D cups would be genius.
Other things that are happening. We should talk really fast about this whole Bubba Wallace NASCAR thing, which is problematic and evolving, right? So Bubba Wallace is the only African-American NASCAR driver. Last Sunday, I want to say, someone discovered in the garage at Talladega, where his whole team had all their cars and stuff, that there was a noose hanging in the garage. And the NASCAR official who learned about it had like tears in his eyes when he told Bubba Wallace. It was very emotional. It was very shocking. It seemed like an overt, horrific act of intimidation. and the threat of racist violence. The next day, all the competitors and all their teams escort him out onto the track, and it's emotional, and he's sobbing, and it's this beautiful display of solidarity. People who don't even care about or like NASCAR are like, wow, that was an awesome thing for NASCAR to do, especially after having just banned the presence of Confederate flags. Like, they're making a change. They're trying to make a change. And then it turns out, every garage at Talladega has a rope that hangs down from the garage door, and this has been tied in the shape of a noose since October. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows why this one is the only one is like that? And also, apparently, it was random the way that drivers got assigned their particular garages because there's more distancing going on because of COVID. So who knows why he got that one? Maybe it's a coincidence.
As somebody said on Twitter, I don't trust the FBI when it comes to telling me what is and isn't racist. So I don't know. I don't know.
It does not negate how it was an inspiring display of solidarity. That is nice. And Bubba Wallace himself said he appreciated that. Anyway, it is evolving and complicated, but it's a thing that everyone was talking about.
I do want to kind of point out, like, who would have thought that of all the maybe not all, but of the major sports organizations, that NASCAR would be setting the best example towards sensitivity and equality.
Well, somebody tweeted, I can't recall who it was, that NASCAR has done more in 4 days to support Bubba Wallace than the NFL has done in 4 years to support Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, no shit. And then when the NFL posted their Black Lives Matter tweet, I love the dragging they received that, because really, go fuck yourselves. Like,
and the Redskins.
Oh, yes.
Their black square.
All of that stuff.
Oh, that one. Yeah, right? Like... Right.
Also, by the way, Hallmark Channel also getting it, which they deserve, because it's like their lack of diversity is staggering.
Yes. Okay, so some things that are canceled in New York. New York City is not going to have its 4th of July big fireworks display that they have on the East River. Their big Macy's extravaganza. But what they're going to do instead is have random, unannounced fireworks displays all over all 5 boroughs. You don't know they're coming. You're just going to hear random explosions.
Isn't that a nightly occurrence lately? I mean, if y'all have that in your neighborhoods, because we definitely have it in ours.
Not in Palos-Verdes, but we can hear them nearby in like Torrance and Lomita. Yes.
Sabrina is not happy. We hear them every night.
No.
Yeah. We hear them every night. It's super irritating.
It is. Also, the New York City Marathon has been canceled, which is a huge deal every year. Like the first weekend in November, they do it. I mean, it's like 25,000 runners, and it's a huge deal to come out and cheer for it. So, of course, they can't have those kinds of crowds. So that is happening. What else? Oh, Ron Jeremy. We haven't talked about Ron Jeremy yet. You want to talk about Ron Jeremy real fast?
Oh, why not?
He's been charged.
He's changing his name. Oh.
He's been charged with sexually assaulting 4 women and who knows how many others. He appeared in court where he pleaded not guilty.
I am seeing from certain sources online that this is, one hopes, the beginning of a real conversation about sexual harassment in the adult film industry. And I think that, again, so often, people in the sex industry are not taken seriously when they talk about these subjects, because there's this underlying notion of like, well, what did you expect? Or look what you do for a living. And it's like, no.
Like, she asked for it.
Exactly. That shit's not going to fly, not even in the world of adult film. So if that is indeed the case, and people do start talking more about safety on sets and a process by which women can report and that kind of stuff, great.
Here's some other good news, some interesting news. The court has dismissed the Trump family's lawsuit to try to block this book, this tell-all book that Mary Trump, the president's niece, has written. So all that shit's going to come out. And also, he was going to, the president was going to travel to Bedminster this weekend to play golf, but now he's not. So expect a weekend of rage tweets.
Didn't they try to legally block Bolton's book too, and not?
Right, and it was already out for people to review, and warehouses already had it.
Gotcha.
Chuck E. Cheese is filed for bankruptcy, and they were already in big trouble, and COVID was like the nail in the coffin, and so.
I've never set foot in a Chuck E. Cheese. Right, Chuck E.'s going to have to spend the rest of his life subject to medical experiments.
Oh, I know. No,
how have you never gone to Chuck E. Cheese?
He'll retire to Boca. I was too old by the time they became a thing, and I don't have a child, so I'm between generations on the Chuck E. Cheese thing.
I've never taken my own child to a Chuck E. Cheese. I have been as a kid myself. It sucks. It's depressing, and it smells weird. What else?
In Kansas City, when I was younger, they had Showbiz Pizza, which was a very similar thing. And I think it was the region like Hardee's and Carl's Jr., right? Like the rest of the country has Hardee's and we have Carl's Jr. So anyway, yeah.
Best Foods and Hellman's.
No, but you know what? Actually, one of the things I'm excited about my new neighborhood is there's an arcade nearby that's one of those places where like it's by the hour rather than by the game and the machine. So it's like $10, play all the games you want for an hour.
But something like that, like when are we, like Dave and Buster's or something like that, when are we going to be able to go back to, you know, a bowling alley, a thing where people touch stuff? How will they make that work?
All I know is I don't roll on Shabbos, man.
Yes. Shomer fucking Shabbos. So, here's something interesting. So Delta is going to ban passengers who refuse to wear a mask. That's good. Good for you, Delta.
Have you seen those nonsense cards that people were carrying around? The little laminated, I have a medical condition cards that were complete nonsense, and they link to some bureau that is not the thing of anything.
Yes. That is fun. This is interesting too. There's this study that shows that the highest COVID infection and death rates are where Hannity has his largest number of viewers. Like it's the cities in the United States that have the highest amount of Fox News viewership. Sean Hannity's show in particular are also the places where they have the highest COVID rates. Coincidence?
Well, what I'm sure it must be.
Right.
It just happened to be that way.
And to be clear, we don't want anyone to get sick and die.
No, of course not.
But
stop listening to nonsense.
Right. Maybe just hear me out here. Maybe don't listen to Hannity.
Right. And they can hide behind the idea like, oh, he's an opinion guy and it's not actually a news program. But people look to him for information, right? Yep. Like he is telling them the truth and everybody else is not. The mainstream media is not. Oh, yeah. So
you know, I like to consider myself a bullshit artist, but that dude's the fucking Picasso of bullshit artists.
Speaking of things where people are going to be clustered together, and Alonso, you're like this because you've been there. Supposedly, Venice plans to go on. The Venice Film Festival plans to go on in September with a red carpet and maybe fewer films.
I'm sure fewer films and a lot fewer guests. I don't think anybody well, first of all, at this point, we don't even know if Europe is letting people from the United States in because we're handling it so badly. But I don't know that many people from the United States want to go. You know, I usually like there's a circuit there for that sort of like, you know, festival films that are launching their awards thing. Like they hit Venice and then they go to Telluride and then they go to Toronto. And like, I don't see like the big names doing that itinerary this year. So
like, has Toronto been canceled already? Toronto is
they're talking about how it's going to go like part online and some screenings, and it is going to happen. And they've already even announced some titles. The lesbian film from the guy who directed God's Own Country that we talked about.
Right.
Is going to be part of the
Ammonite
lineup. Ammonite, yeah. But they're going to do a mix of some in-person screenings and some online stuff.
Couple more quick things. Elizabeth Banks is supposed to play Miss Frizzle in a live action version of the Magic School Bus. You guys are too old to have watched Magic School Bus as kids, as am I, but I know what it is because of my son.
Gotcha.
So it's based on a Scholastic book series. What's that?
Who's playing the bus?
I don't know. It's a good question. But Lily Tomlin.
Vin Diesel.
Lily Tomlin voiced the original 90s animated series, and then Kate McKinnon now does the rebooted version of it. And
how do you not hire Kate McKinnon? Come on.
Right, that's a good question. But also there's this whole Twitter campaign to have it be Tracy Ellis Ross. Apparently that's who everyone thinks should be Miss Frizzle.
Okay.
It's very catchy. The song gets stuck in your head on the Magic School Bus. It's a cute show, and it's informative. Finally, my last thing for you, Joel Schumacher died.
Yes.
Right? Jack of all trades, incredibly versatile, and an amazing, long, storied life and career. Joel Schumacher, who put nipples in the bat suit, among many others. He discovered Colin Farrell, too.
He did. No, it's amazing the sort of like, one of those moments on Twitter where I can tell like how old I am compared to a lot of people who cover film, because the level of discussion about his two Batman movies, I'm like, that's your go-to when you think about Joel Schumacher? Like, that's so down the list for me.
He did a whole lot before that.
And a whole lot before that. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he
Incredible Shrinking Woman.
That was his first film as a director. But yeah, like he started off as a costumer. He did The Last of Sheila, which if you've never seen The Last of Sheila, watch The Last of Sheila. He wrote, like The Wiz and Car Wash, and then became a director. And I think was very much kind of an old school Hollywood type director in that he was always very stylish, but genre-wise, you couldn't really pin him down. He would do like comedies. He would do, he did 2 Grisham adaptations. He did Tigerland, and he did, St. Elmo's Fire, and the Batman movies, and
Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera, exactly. Cousins, I think, is an underrated
Cousins is
movie.
That's a great.
That's like, there was that moment in the 80s where everybody was remaking French comedies in the hopes of being the next 3 Men and a Baby. And Cousins, I think, is the best of that bunch and one of the best U.S. remakes of a French comedy ever. So yeah, he's, he could be kind of hacky, but he was, I think he always put a lot of verve into his work, and he was a really good interview. I talked to him very briefly once, and you read stuff from like that Vulture interview from last year was like, well, okay, we're gonna.
How he had like 20,000 sexual partners.
Yeah. So he was one of a kind, and he was, and weirdly enough, people tend to forget this. He was not always like out, because there was a distinction between, oh well, everybody in the industry knows, and it is mentioned in press, but once he was out, he was fully out, and it didn't really shock a lot of people if you saw the nipples on the bat suit. So.
Oh yes, I just think about how culturally how big of a deal St. Elmo's Fire and the Lost Boys were to defining that kind of 80s, like sexy, flashy 80s melodrama.
The Billy Idol mural in Demi Moore's apartment.
Right.
The sexy saxophone guy.
Yes.
Yeah, he did a whole bunch of In Excess videos too, but then he'll do like Dying Young, right, or Falling Down, and then Tigerland couldn't be more understated. It's one of his best. So yeah, you can't really pin down what a Joel Schumacher film is. He
exactly.
I
or Time to Kill, right? That's it.
Yeah, Time to Kill and The Client.
He did a couple of.
Tommy Lee Jones worked with him twice.
Yeah, but I moderated a Q&A with him at South by Southwest many years ago, and he was a delight. He began as a window dresser at Bendel's in New York. He would ride his bike into the city, and he had these dreams of working in fashion, and then as you said, Alonso, he was started out as a costumer, and that's how he became a filmmaker, and an interesting guy. So he died.
He and Liz Smith were besties.
Yes, he died at age 80.
Yeah, with a hell of a life.
Yeah. Anyway.
One last thing I want to mention real quick before we get out of here. I've just launched a new podcast called A Film and a Movie, and Miss Christy Lemire is our guest next week to discuss the connections between Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets and Amy Heckerling's Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It came out really well. I hope you tune in.
That was really fun, and it was very eye-opening. And Dan, your co-host, is a really smart and thoughtful guy. I enjoyed talking to him as well. So that was really fun. Yeah, it's the kind of cool, it's like a think piece in podcast form, right? Like a film school think piece, but it's more fun because you get to actually have a banter about it. So I enjoyed that.
Matt, we're going to get you on.
Okay. Fine. It's okay. I'm all right.
Anyway. Anyway, listen, we've
I
got
get to go to the LAFCO stuff.
We're very fancy, man.
No one's going to the LAFCO stuff right now. I'll be if we have a dinner in January, it'll be
doubt it.
Newsworthy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we've made it through another week, you guys. So thanks for spending it with us, and we hope you're hanging in there. We'll be back next time. Oh, yes.
Also, we have reviews that we're going to do this week, lest we forget, right?
Well, yeah, right. But I'm wrapping this up for you.
He's wrapping up this segment.
I know. We didn't even talk about the movies we're talking about this week.
Do we ever do that?
We're going to talk about Eurovision and Irresistible and My Spy.
We are indeed. There, Matt. You happy now?
No.
All right. Thank you for watching, everybody. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and do check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We do lots of fun stuff there that's exclusive to our subscribers. We just wrapped up The Great on Hulu, and now we'll be launching into a new Hulu show, Love Victor. So we'll be covering the first couple episodes of that 10-episode series over on Patreon. So check that out. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and bye.